Continuing coverage on Operation Epic Fury as we examine how to talk to our children about what's going on right now in the Middle East. And toward that end, joining us now with some practical advice is Dr. Emily Scarpola, a clinical psychologist at the Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
You know, as hard as one might try to shield our children from the images on the news, coverage of this conflict with Iran right now are so pervasive, it might be impossible. What's your advice for parents in this regard?
I think it's important for parents to understand that if your kid is old enough to ask about it, they're old enough to get a response about it. So if you're getting asked questions as a parent about what's going on, it's really important to reflect the language that your kid is using, talking about people being hurt and understanding that that is happening and reflecting that back to them and answering their questions. We're not going to be able to shield them, unfortunately, from everything going on in the world, and we can certainly reduce the time that they're spending online, but on other types of news or other access to that information, but we're not going to be able to stop all of it. So finding ways to answer those questions and create open communication is very important, because the more we try to avoid it or tell them not to talk about it, the scarier it's going to seem to kids. They'll always assume the worst.
Now, as children see images and have this conversation with their family, they may be concerned, is something like that going to happen here? What does one say?
Well, I think it's important to note that it's unlikely to happen, at least in the United States, to our children, letting them know that they are safe and that it's important that they know that. And acknowledging that not all children are safe at this time, unfortunately, but if they're here, they're typically in a safer position, and letting them know that.
You know, clearly there's a lot of history between our two nations, the U.S. and Iran, most of it negative in recent decades. Should you even try to explain any of that geopolitical stuff? And if so, at what age?
Well, I think it's really important that we take a developmentally appropriate approach. I think that you should take your child's lead as much as possible. And if they're asking questions about those things and about the specific nature of it, finding ways to say things to them in the same way that they're saying them to you. I wouldn't go above and beyond and explain things that don't feel like things your child will understand, because that could confuse them. But if it feels like they would understand and that they do want to know the answers to those questions, it's best not to avoid them.
Well, good practical advice, and we appreciate you helping us. Dr. Emily Scarpola, clinical psychologist at the Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt, thank you again.
Thank you.